Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dmitry Kirchev. I'm going to be your host. With me is Mr. Nikolai Stoykov. And today's episode, number 15, we're going to be talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Hello, Mr. Kirchev, and hello to our lovely audience. Happy you're sticking with us. Yes, I would really like to talk to you and our audience about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you ever heard of it, Dunning-Kruger effect, before you came to Alaric?
No. Definitely no.
You probably didn't hear about many of the things we
Yeah,
speak about on the podcast before you came to Alaric.
definitely, yeah.
We'll probably attach it in the episode so that listeners can actually have a reference point. But the Dunning-Kruger effect is basically something you could check on Wikipedia. It basically says that how your competence in subjects actually compares to your confidence. And in our kind of, I guess, untrained or basically unattentive mind, it seems that competence and confidence go hand in hand. But Dunning-Kruger effect says that this is not the case. One of the best examples here for the Dunning-Kruger effect is teenage driving. So teenage drivers, about 3.9% of the drivers in the US, and cause 7.9% of fatal accidents. Considering teenage drivers are 70% male, we can extrapolate and say that the average teen male driver is 4 times riskier than the average driver, except in his own mind. Yes,
Right.
so this is kind of like a brief Dunning-Kruger effect.
All right, so I'm gonna attach the graph that is in front of us right now in the comment section so the listeners can check it out as well. Can you provide us with a little bit more in-depth explanation? What exactly is the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Dunning-Kruger effect is something that I think that most people after the age of 20-something know it, but they don't or think they know some of the effects. So this is kind of my experience with the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I think many listeners might do it. It has to do with learning a foreign language. So let me give you the story. I was in 8th grade when I started learning English at the English language school, very intense the first year. Then intensity goes down, but doesn't go down tremendously. You're still learning. And after 5 years, I basically took tests to go to the US. And according to those tests, I was very proficient. And I felt comfortable speaking and writing and studying subjects in English language. It turns out that this was a false confidence. And once I went to the US and got totally immersed in the English-speaking environment, I was overwhelmed. I was basically 2 speeds behind people in terms of reaction, in terms of construction of sentences. So I was technically proficient, but it was like slower, and my kind of proficiency wasn't as consistent or as good as those of the native speaker. And that really showed up in situations where you had to speak on the phone. So you learn that maybe those 5 years wasn't enough. I wasn't as proficient as I thought I was. And even if after a year or 2, as you kind of gain a little bit of experience and kind of totally immerse yourself in the English language, you're still socially irrelevant in many ways. That when people start talking about breakfast at Tiffany's, you would think that they're talking about restaurant and breakfast, and turns out that it's not.
That's not what breakfast at Tiffany's is about.
That's not breakfast at Tiffany's. So any references when people say breakfast at Tiffany's is like complete, unknown to you, and it takes another 5 years. So it's like during those 5 years, you kind of learn the socially relevant references that people speak about so that you know what they're talking about. And moreover, as you live in the US for 5 years, more socially kind of important events happen, and you experience them with the native kind of speakers and the other people that live there. And you basically become socially kind of proficient. So, yes, my reference curve is it takes 10 years usually to perfect something. And along the way, you experience in the beginning a very big surge of confidence when things start to kind of go well. There's going to be a valley of despair in everything you do. And then after 10 years, you'll be kind of your confidence and your experience will probably will be correctly valued. But the peak of Mount Stupid, which is the quite overconfidence, and some sort of valley of despair is unavoidable and
It's unavoidable.
Unavoidable. The valley of despair doesn't need to be as deep. So we're going to give you a graph that the peak of Mount Stupid is very high and the valley of despair is very deep. It doesn't need to be that much, but something like that. Something like that will be in all your efforts. In all your efforts.
It's a contrast of peak of Mount Stupid.
Yes, it's a contrast. We could, as I said, like teenage kind of driving is a good example. To a degree, this Dunning-Kruger effect could be basically a very good extrapolation for people's lives. So how people learn about life. You are at the peak of Mount Stupid in your early 20s. This is unavoidable because your body is growing, you're moving, you're kind of progressing, and you get the idea that, hey, life happens on its own. You see how much big progress I've made over the last 5-10 years if you just graduated from college. So looking back and say, oh, I'm like, top of the world. It's like this is clearly is going to go only up from here. There's tremendous good opportunities. Some people going to recognize my genius. And there's a beautiful girl or a beautiful guy that's going to be your soulmate and everything's going to be there. And none of this is true.
It's always going to be sunny. It's never going to rain.
People, especially in the late 20s, early 30s, start going down. And they kind of reach the valley of despair. We call this midlife crisis. So for men, that's lasts about 5 to 10 years, age between 40 and 60.
That's a lot.
Yes. On average. For women, it's a little bit shorter, maybe 2 to 3 years, but also in the shorter time frame, something like 45, 55. So this is unavoidable in the sense that, I'm 50 years old and I can tell you that I don't know if I've had midlife crisis, but I've experienced the valley of despair. So it's like, and I think that most people who experience something like that, when you first have to recognize that you're no longer that young and maybe you need to start doing things a little bit different. But there is hope because then comes slope of enlightenment. And that slope doesn't need to be steep. It could be actually very shallow. For most people, I think it's actually quite shallow. But it could be steep. And then you reach a plateau of sustainability, according to the chart, and that's it.
Back to your example about the languages, when you give an example about you and your English journey. Do you know how many friends I have that, I wouldn't say friends, more like known acquaintances that go, oh, Dimitar, your English is good, right? And I'm like, I would say so. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, but you don't know any other language. And I say, no, I don't. And they go, I know 7 languages.
All right.
So, following your example, most likely they're at Mount Stupid.
That's right. In the sense that, there is no, there is a surgeon, as a doctor, But surgeons usually specialize. So it's like we observe this, like if you really want to become very good at something, you're a brain surgeon, you're a heart surgeon, you're like, I don't know, a eye surgeon, or I guess like general surgeon or something like that. But don't see brain surgeon doing eye surgery, right?
Right. Yeah.
So while it's technically possible to have expertise in multiple area, in reality, if those multiple areas are not related, this would be very unusual. And yes, it seems like you could become very good at only one thing. And one of the errors that people could do at this valley of despair is try to figure out what you're good at, and people diversify and try to gain multiple degrees, gain like experience in this industry, gain experience in that industry. And this is a very common kind of error that people do at the valley of despair once they realize the underlying kind of the ignorance that drives the peak of Mount Stupid and Dunning-Kruger effect is the idea that something is easy. So it's like people say, if you're a trader, they say, well, and trading gets hard, they say, I should have become a real estate developer because real estate only goes up and those guys make a lot of money. And I'm not a real estate developer, but I could tell you that it's probably really hard. And real estate developers come to me and say, Nikolai, what you do seems very easy. I want you to teach me how to do it. This is like a very true thing. And I said, it looks easy after 25 years. It's the first 10.
Looks easy on me.
Yeah, looks easy. It's like, oh, you did that analysis, it turns out correct. It took me 20 years to go there, to gather this analysis. And this is really, again, something that we really think that there is an arbitrage. It's kind of like an arbitrage, but it will be a very good thing if whatever you decide to do, you always think that it's going to be actually hard or extremely hard, somewhere around there. I think you're going to marry your soulmate, like if you're a girl or guy, and things are going to be easy. I can be sure to tell you that you should expect to be hard. Your career, things are going to be hard. Like everything's going to be hard. And if you're looking for that quick fix, and everything going easy, you're wrong. Mr. Panayotov, the CEO of Alaric Securities, has tons of sayings about this. A few favorite of mine that he had shared with me. Falling down feels like flying in the beginning. Every time, if you got Jesus by the coat tail, you will realize that Jesus doesn't have any coat. And my favorite one is, there is no need to run towards the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's most likely it's the oncoming train.
Right. I heard the last one as well.
Once I was kind of walking on Vitosha Boulevard here, pedestrian section of Sofia, and I saw this girl kind of in yoga pants and I guess with a yoga mat. And as she was walking, she just kind of turned around, did a pirouette, and started dancing a little bit, and then just continued to walk. This is kind of a very dangerous state of mind. It's a very dangerous state of mind. The idea that things are going well. This cannot go too well. When I find myself in situations like that, I let it stay for a day maybe. But on the morning, I have to run harder, further, or faster, because nothing is easy. And if you think you've captured that moment where things are great and you have achieved perfect happiness, This is very misleading, and you're a monkey and you think you're flying, and the only time the monkey's flying is if you're falling down. And every time I find myself, if I'm flying, I make a conscious effort to reach out and grab a branch so I no longer fly, because invariably you end up splashing on some sort of a rock. Yes, there's a few things that I want to go. So it's like in the beginning, like, many of those things is we don't know, but at some point, this is not about not knowing. Let me give you an example. We had a trader here that his family would sell very exotic cars. And I asked him, how do you sell those cars? And said, like, well, those cars cannot be sold through advertisement. So he was very active in the social scene. He had like many kind of friends that were girls, attractive girls. And said, I'll basically post like, send Facebook messages or like contact many of those girls that I know and offer them a free, experience, like going to some sort of car event, like car show or rallies, like sports car competitions. And when those girls go with me, because they know me and they trust him and it's just a day trip, they go with shorts, with like, some sort of skirts, kind of like dressed for the summer. Those things is usually dressed for the summer. And say when I stage the car there, with the girls around, I get buyers. I have never sold a car to a stranger that just walked off the street looking at the ad. The patterns, one of the patterns is like, for cars is you need to buy a car that's less than 5% of your net worth.
Less than 5? I heard 10.
5 is the pattern, or half of your annual income. Obviously, if you don't have a lot of kind of like, a lot of net worth, half your annual income. Of course, if your income is low and you really need a car, like obviously you could stretch it. But one of the things that usually happens with traders is he lives in a 1-bedroom rental apartment and he leases, a Lambo or Ferrari. Clearly, he's invested like, 100% or maybe even borrowed money.
Yeah, that's me.
That's me with the Mercedes.
And it's not that people don't know about this, but it's like I will go to the effect of what's wrong. So maybe in the beginning you kind of overestimated this thing, so you didn't know about this pattern. But in reality, many people keep repeating it. There's another pattern, and the pattern is a pattern is most people don't get married unless they've dated the person between 2 and 5 years. So most people get married after dating the person after 2 to 5 years. And what happens is many people actually marry people much faster. So they know the statistics, but I guess the underlying fact is that they keep thinking that the relationship is going to be for sure good, and the true essence of the relationship is going to take 10 years. So what happens is, one of the statistics you could give them is like every year during the first 10 years, the probability of you getting divorced increases. It's only after the 10 year that it decreases. And I remember, like, this friend of mine, or colleague of mine, like, he met a girl and she needed to stay, kind of like, in order to stay, it was easier for her to get married to him. And they were discussing whether they should get married or just kind of do the long dated thing and just see each other every 3 months and decide to get married. I told him that this is very dangerous, and I worry that this could be like, kind of a can of worms, like something that, like, doesn't work out. And he would kind of check on him and said, like, oh, Nicola, you don't need to worry about it. Like, she's making me breakfast in bed. And I said, I don't know if their relationship it will work out or not, but I'm pretty sure that she's not going to be making you breakfast in bed forever, as evidenced by the fact that no woman makes breakfast in bed for her husband.
Right.
This happens only in the beginning. Only in the beginning. And my favorite part is that we had like a good year, and one of my colleagues kind of I guess he had a decent bonus, and he went to Miami, I guess, and one day, maybe like several weeks later, I noticed that he started coming late. So we were supposed to be in the office at 7:30, and he would be routinely coming like 7:40, 7:35, something like that. Not too late, but a little bit consistently late.
Yeah.
So
Noticeably late.
So I asked him like, what's going on? And he's just like, it's too embarrassing to tell. And I said, don't worry, it turns out that he met, mind you, met a girl at a strip club, and she was a bartender. Decided to fly her to New York, and after spending a week in New York where they had unprotected sex, they had an accident. Kind of he couldn't, I guess, protect her. And he was kind of going to church every morning for 7 o'clock mass, praying so she doesn't get pregnant.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
I pointed out to him that it kind of going to masses and lighting a candle probably is not going to change the probability.
Change nothing. It's going to change nothing.
I'm here to tell you that you're going to do something very stupid in your life. At least once, maybe multiple times. You're going to buy a Lambo when you can't afford it. You're going to put more than 100% of your money in the car. You're going to marry somebody after 3 months or something like that. And you're probably will, I don't know, have unprotected sex and kind of get a few accidents. This is a known problems, and I guess I'm kind of focusing only on men because that's how my life has been. And kind of any of those things could happen to you. Probably many of them will happen, a version of that. My favorite one is there was a 53-year-old guy I was watching some sort of crime show that met a 24-year-old girl, and they decided to get married after 13 days, and he didn't tell his relatives, even his teenage daughter. He just showed up with that girl and said that and looking at it on the kind of outside, you think that that's actually very crazy, and it is very crazy, but you do something equally stupid. You probably will. I mean, statistics say that you do something equally stupid, if not more. So it's and how did this thing end up? It ended up on a crime show. So it's obviously if you marry somebody that difference age is almost 30 years after 13 days, this is a bad idea, but nobody could stop him. So I thought about a lot about in the beginning when you're young, you actually don't know many of those patterns, or you kind of underestimate them. But the fact that this guy was 53-year-old, he kind of knew. And
deep down, he knew it was something stupid to do.
Right now, he was too stupid to do. The problem with that is what in Buddhism say weakness of the mind. So as we said, it's this is not a known problem. This is you are not willing to do what the right thing to do is, and you just feel compelled to do what you feel like doing. There are multiple kind of factors that come into play. One of them is kind of accumulation of things, but this is the reason. If it wasn't for Buddhism, I would have never gotten it. It's called the fifth precept, and I would kind of read you a brief description how I like reading it. But the precept encourages mindfulness, clarity of mind, and self-control. It involves refraining from consuming alcohol or any other intoxicant in any way that impairs judgment, mindfulness, and ethical conduct. It involves refraining from consuming alcohol or any other intoxicants in any way that impairs judgment, mindfulness, and ethical conduct. It's very important to put a context to this. Dopamine in your body actually comes from the sun. So basically, when I said that 50% of the time you'll be less than happy, those times are usually in the afternoon and evening. It's very important that you actually go to bed early, or as early as possible on a regular basis, because if you stay up late at night, you're gonna have all those kind of urges. So you're gonna weaken your mind. So as compared to only 50 years ago when I was very young, my parents would put me to sleep at like 8 o'clock at night in the evening. My dad would probably go to bed at 8:30, and only my mom might stay late until 10, and then she go to bed. What has really occurred over the last, 30, 40 years is everything has moved by an hour or two. So couples and people regularly going back to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock. Kids are going back to 10, watching TV. This is really at the core is you're not noticing it, but your quality or lack of quality of sleep makes those urges to kind of reach and eat or do something impulsively much stronger. So at the core is kind of awareness that you need to take care of hygiene of your sleep. The second one that is there is just awareness that kind of intoxicant that impair your judgment and mindfulness are everywhere. And one of the biggest intoxicant is actually coffee. This is a little bit strange because regarded sources say that coffee is actually in itself is actually not bad, but in reality they separate coffee from smoking or from doing any other things. There are certain coffee drinkers that can control themselves, but in reality, if you're a coffee drinker, you're always more likely to start smoking. So in that way, coffee is just a gateway to all the other drugs. I haven't seen a drug user that doesn't drink coffee. So in that particular sense, you are addicted to caffeine. The average person drinks 2 to 3 cups a day. You are incapable and mindfulness for the next, or not incapable, but seriously impaired for the next 2 hours, maybe even 8. And this goes on. So the second one is the average person watches 3 hours of TV and is on his phone 3 hours a day impulsively, reaching for the phone and going on Facebook, Instagram, checking quotes, checking news, stuff like that. We finally go into music. So it's those things are really there in your ears. Any music is acts as irritant of your nervous system. And this is like a soup over and over. And I could see how the society has changed, and even going to the gym nowadays, it feels like going to the club. I mean, there is club music playing. Sometimes there's live DJs. Girls are wearing bustiers and breasts are falling out. You see girls belly buttons and pierced belly buttons, all kinds of tattoos and stuff like that, and everything is very loud. And this is a constant irritant of your nervous system, and it prevents you from kind of doing the right thing. So those irritants, consistent small irritations of your nervous system, make those urges that you have impossible to resist. The withdrawal from this is very slow, maybe 5 to 10% a week. Withdrawal, a reduction of many of the intoxicants. But you should nevertheless put in mind, if I have to tell you ideally how far I would like to be on that fifth precept, and everybody needs to decide how far they need to go. Ideally, I want to go to bed at 8:39. Ideally, I would like to be drinking no more than 2-3 cups of coffee a week. Ideally, I would like to be running in the park with no music. Ideally, my screen time on my phone would be 1 hour. Ideally, I would be watching less than an hour TV a day. Ideally, you would spend at least 4 to 5 hours a week in kind of learning new stuff. So building a Excel spreadsheet, kind of like, taking, I don't know, preparing for an exam or stuff like that, and reading like books that are like textbook quality or something difficult to read. People always ask me for like trading textbook, and I feel, trading books, and I feel like burning all of them that I've read. I've read over 1,000, and I feel like burning them. And the reason why I feel like burning them is because many of those books, practically all of them, it's like watching Dr. House. They're too easy, and they give you an idea of what trading is like. But can you become really a doctor by watching Dr. House? And I contrast this with, programming textbook. Like, in my early years when I was like trying to be a programmer, and reading a programming language book, it's like 10 pages and you need to stop and think and write. It's difficult to read. Like a 200-page programming book may take you like a month or two to like complete and kind of learn it. And many of those trading books, people could finish them in 2 days. And it's very important, the choice of language. So we're going for that mindfulness, quietness, everything that speeds your thoughts, or kind of like, anything, is probably a little bit too much. Of course, like, this is something that you need to decide how far you want to go. But this is what I think, where I want to be. What do you say, Mr. Kirchhoff?
Well, I do agree with you. I'm finding it extremely difficult to believe that the average person will go through that. It's like 1 hour screen time, 1 hour of TV, 2 to 3 coffees a week.
Right. At some point, this is like one of the kind of the pitfalls in the valley of despair. Has it ever happened to you, like you feel like you need to go to the bathroom, I don't know, and you're in an elevator and you kind of going home and you think you're going to be in the bathroom for like 5 minutes and you're like 20 seconds and you're done.
Yeah.
Right. So our feelings are not even a correct reflection of our bodies. And what the other people would do is not up to you. So in that particular sense, statistics say that people will not do that. I understand that. But losing faith, not believing that others are capable of change, is what prevents you from actually achieving your goal. So put that in place. So when you put limitations on others and you start change on January 1st and you experience like a drawback, a setback, you kind of break a diet or you skip like several days, and you kind of say, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to start over, and say, I already broke it and I'm not going to try again. So this is very important to have faith in others. This is like one of the things that keeps people in the valley of despair. It's like, statistics say that people will not do it, but you believe, nevertheless, that they're capable.
So the statistic also says that people spend their lifetimes in valley of despair.
That's right. And the important thing is to realize that the error in you is not that most people will not do that. Is that the error is that you think that nobody will do that. And you actually don't know who will spend their lifetime in the valley of despair and who choose to change. You actually don't know that.
Yeah.
So the important thing is, yes, to like say, population-wise, people will not do it. Statistically, that's probably very significant, and we could assume in our lifetime that's not going to change. But who will choose to do it, you don't know.
So they're the ones that actually said the difference.
Yes, they're the ones that said the difference. You're one of those people. It's like, before you came here, it's like, I've tried to change many people, and it never worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the path to do a lot of stupid things. I still did some stupid things, but it could have been much worse.
Yeah, could be much.
Yeah, let's just look at 2 standard deviations of ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, our channel is called Trading Pattern. That's what
Right.
our podcast stands for. Most of our traders on our trading floor are young individuals, right?
Right.
Even our prop firms, clients, they tend to get people straight from the university.
Right.
From the examples you gave, 20-year-olds tend to be at peak of Mount Stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't it extremely difficult for the young trader to start a trading career being in his 20s, being at peak of Mount Stupid regarding his body, his confidence, his everything pretty much,
Right.
and then giving him money to trade? And
Right. The reality of it is all this taken care of by the group. So all your, not all, but many of your pitfalls and self-destructive behavior, especially doubt and kind of mind tendencies to jump from one conclusion to the next, gets cured by a cohesive group. So if the group is cohesive and the person has a mentor and he speaks to his mentor and his other traders, even though he will be subject to kind of pressure to kind of change his mind or kind of go back and forth, in reality the group would kind of have a good communication. People make much better decisions. So the group actually takes care of the valley of despair and peak of Mount Stupid. So it's like on their own, those traders will absolutely self-destruct. There's no doubt in my mind.
does that translate in real life as well, not just for trading? So if you're in a group of individuals that, like you, tend to drink 2-3 coffees a week, 1 hour screen time. So
Yeah.
in real life, if you're surrounded by people that try, your chances are higher of
That's right.
not
That's right. That's right.
self-destructing and being in valley of
That's right.
despair forever.
The most important kind of ingredient for that is the cohesiveness of the group. So if the trader is just surrounded by other traders, that would be of help, but not that much. It would help much more if people have close relationships, even if they are not necessarily trading the same market. So being surrounded the people you trust and kind of like, especially the valley of despair, especially the valley of despair, every trader would have like, serious kind of difficult time. So somebody that understands what the value of despair is in trading, even if he's not trading on markets, it's actually very important.
In sometime after I started working here, I was actually in the valley of despair, thinking I would never bring any clients to the company for months.
Right. One of the things that people need to do is like valley of despair is unavoidable. Just to like make you try. I could see like where the problem is. Like this is like a real example. We had one of the traders, like I was in his lecture and people asked him how he made his first $10,000, and he basically gave the following example. So he came up with an idea that some stock is going to go down 20%. There was a very good reason not when the stock will go 20%. It was ETF and there was kind of like, all the kind of comparisons. So everybody agreed that's a good idea. And he would routinely kind of every day do the calculations, the ETF versus fair value versus other ETFs. and every day would update the spreadsheet. And he told like 5 or 6 of his friends, and 5 or 6 of his friends actually entered the position. Stock went down 5%, and then kind of proceeded to kind of go up a little bit. Out of those 5 friends, 2 immediately covered, a little bit less than 5%. Stock went down another 5%, and again kind of stalled. And all the other 3 friends covered. So he was the only one that held on for the 20%. The moral of the story is the guy that makes the spreadsheet, that actually kind of
The actual effort.
every day, is the one that's going to resist the doubt and kind of stay with the position. The error that I see with many of the traders and many of the traders is the resistance to write the ideas. They're worried that the idea is like stupid or not that good. And one day they love it, the next day they feel they're stupid, they're looking for guidance on somebody. I said your first year writings are going to be very stupid. But eventually you learn from that. And the kind of like the topics that you choose to write about is something that you could look back. Right now, and this is a real example. We're speaking to like one colleague about Bitcoin when it was like, I don't know, 2021, something like that. And he would say like, I don't know, Bitcoin at 60, I don't know, it could go up. It seems like it wants to go up, but it's up a lot. So it definitely could go down. And then Bitcoin went to 20,000. And he came up to me and said, I told you that this thing will go down. Reality is people remember only kind of say, I knew I should have bought it. You didn't buy it because you could have bought it, but you also worried that it could go down. So in the reality is like people never kind of write their high confidence ideas. And even if your high confidence ideas is wrong, at least you wrote it. And right now people just misremember. So it's like, they think about buying Bitcoin or selling Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin does whatever it's going to do, they say, I was right. That was easy. But they don't remember the fact that they were, it wasn't so easy at the time that they did it. So one of the kind of like the determinants that what increases like this value of despair is it precises this reflectiveness, mindfulness, kind of living, deciding which idea is good and which idea you're going to invest, and not just trade and actually write. I want to say the one thing, it's like I discovered how you should kind of proceed with trading. So one of the episodes I describe how I invested some money for a colleague of my father, and how I didn't sleep the night before. So the guy is like in his 70s. He's leaving me with no small amount. He's no longer working, so that's probably like a good chunk of his retirement. He may have other assets, but the amount is not small. And he's looking for like 5% return, and this is like, at the end of 2021. So it's like, the world is coming to an end, the party is coming to an end, like, we're going to raise rates, and market might go down. And I never really kind of put myself through so many checks. The reality is, I think that what you should trade, and kind of like a good check, is if you invest your mother's mortgage money. So your mother took a mortgage on her apartment or house, and she gave it to you, and she still needs to make the mortgage payment.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of burden that you need to clear before you make a decision. Is if you're trading with your own money or with the money of somebody else, and if you're trading with the money of the others. The other test that I ask myself is, Nikolai, are you really qualified to make that decision for the money that this person has? And obviously at the time I was maybe 20 something years trading, and I was trading out the way we're allocating the money. We've been doing it for 8 years. So clearly I had the kind of like the right experience. Just the idea with trading with your mother's mortgage is not enough to prevent you from doing suicidal things on the market. You need the experience. So you need the experience. But those are the questions I ask myself. If those money were money that my mother took out mortgage on her apartment, and do I have really the expertise to say, to allocate money that way? And yeah, even then I had doubts. So I mean people see me and they say you always feel confident. It's like I don't feel confident at all. It's like I have doubts, but I said I've learned that hey, you're qualified and your intentions are kind of like your moral compass or whatever you want to call it are properly placed. Of course you could lose on the trade. Of course you could make a mistake, but there's probably nobody in a better position than you to make the decision, and you need to do it. And that's like the kind of like the end game. So it's like this person wants a little bit of return, and whoever else he goes is going to get worse idea. And he's come to you and you're qualified to do it. And of course you could make a mistake, and if you make a mistake it's going to be bad, but everybody can make a mistake and the other people can make bigger mistakes than you. And so you need to do what you think is the right thing because that's your job.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's your job.
That's your job.
He came to you.
He came to you. It's like,
Right.
You have hyperventilating, right?
Are there any mistakes past the valley of despair, let's say,
Of
in
course,
the slope of enlightenment and Pluto's?
All the time. So the mistakes will never kind of like change, and you're forced to make decisions. It's just basically you're aware of the consequences of those decisions, and you don't make stupid mistakes. So it's like, once you begin to go down the slope of despair, you're no longer going to marry somebody after 3 months, however the circumstances. You're not going to lease a Lambo before you buy like a very important, like a big real estate. You're going to avoid those self-destructive things. Mistakes you make. You hire people that you shouldn't have hired. You're going to enter positions you're going to, shouldn't have entered. But those will be kind of unavoidable. But we're going to be avoiding, where this, obvious kind of pattern where people do something and you choose to do something completely different. Or in the sense that use 100-to-1 leverage. So that's like, I mean, most people that use leverage use reasonable sorts of leverage. So you're not going to make that mistake. You could leverage the wrong position, but you're going to leverage it a lot smaller than 100-to-1. The most important thing is all those things are normal. I guess the most important thing I want to say, the Dunning-Kruger effect, is everybody goes for this. Everybody goes for it. It's like, the realization that, hey, it's not about making the mistakes. It's about like this mindfulness, slow thinking. So what happens is you're thinking slow, you're speaking slow, you're moving slow, and this kind of speed is kind of preventing you from kind of I guess like exploring the truth. This is like, another kind of trap in the valley of despair is like the need to know. Kind of like, one of the traders asked me, was like, Nikolai, what do you think? Could the USA one day kind of like go bankrupt? And I said, what do the credit agencies say? Credit agencies say US is AAA, one of them is saying AA. So I'm saying it's like those people that do credit analysis for living have assigned AA and AAA rating, so extremely low chance of default. I said, but don't you think that with the high debt to GDP, one day that could be? And I said, your expertise to become a credit analyst is 10 years away. You're not a credit analyst.
At least.
You're not a credit analyst. You need to take the credit rating agencies. And he said, like, but I still like to know, could it one day? And this is a function of kind of the restless mind. It wants to know. Why this girl didn't like me? Why this girl like the other guy? Why the stock went up?
Why did the trade go against me?
Yeah, why did the trade go against me? It's like, what's going to happen to interest rates? Could Trump start a third world war? Could China invade Taiwan? I mean, all those things is like, endless, big, what they call the big, qualities, questions in life. What do women want? The fact that people have been asking themselves what do women want leads to only one conclusion. Nobody has ever known what women
nobody
want.
knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody will know.
Yeah, nobody will know because it's complicated. It's very complicated. It's so complicated that 10 years is not enough, and if 10 years is not enough, there may not be an answer. And yeah, so it's like, but this is all a product of your restless mind, like, accumulation of sleepless nights, watching documentaries, reading internet sources, like, looking for the wow effect, and all those questions accumulate. It's like, the most important thing is, as they say in the Bible, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow should take care of its own. The most important thing is today. Did you run today? Did you exercise today? Did you write anything today? Did you clean your bathroom? Blowjob effort for the bathroom? Did you make your bed today? And the reason why people don't do those things is because they worry about US defaulting.
The AAA company defaulting.
Yeah, and if you're trying to figure that one out, and then kind of they say I kind of feel insecure about the current situation. I don't want to invest. I want to have some clarity what's going to happen. And by the time we get the clarity, market would have doubled. Yeah. And then maybe go down because everybody gets the clarity. So the most important thing is, yes, those go hand in hand. As your kind of dopamine addiction kind of decreases, all those kind of urges to ask some sort of global questions would kind of decrease. But yeah, the most important thing is that unless you stop that incessant kind of curiosity about things that you're not specialist about, value of despair is going to be there. So most important day is today. It's not, tomorrow is not important, but you overvaluate tomorrow and the future. So it's like people ask me, is like, what's going to happen eventually? I'm like, okay, the IMF make economic prognosis every year. They don't make prognosis beyond 1 year. And you're going to listen to a guy that's going to tell you what's going to happen in the next 5 years. The IMF is the specialist. So it's like, if you think a guy makes better economic predictions than the IMF, you're wrong. And it's really just a matter of time. It's like, what is the US economy going to do today? Ask the IMF. What the hell are you reading those Ray Dalio inspired things? It's like, as I said, it's kind of the idea that people are specialists in everything is is a warning flag. Nobody's really a specialist in anything, in everything. Everything is specialist in one thing. And a group of specialists are especially predictive. So the idea that anybody can beat the economic prognosis of IMF consistently is just ludicrous, because they have institutions, they have the capacity, and they have the groups that work it. Once in a while, somebody could make better predictions. That's possible, but not consistently. And for the many things. And even if a specialist make a mistake, let's say people disregard the credit agencies and say, oh, well, didn't those credit agencies make a mistake in the mortgage crisis in 2008? Yes, they made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, even specialists. But you're not specialist in credit rating. And you should take the opinion is more important than what you think. So if the credit agencies are rating U.S. debt triple and double A, that's what the risk of default is. It's unavoidable. So it's like, Dunning-Kruger effect is everywhere. And it's important to realize that this is like, it happens with people. So it's like, even if you are on the slope on the enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, if you meet new person, you immediately going to get some feelings about that person. So you're going to get the realization that you are the amount stupid at that person. So it's like, first day, first week, you may get an impression. It's important to tell yourself, hey, you're the amount stupid. I mean, you're there. It's like, you think this person is always going to be like that, good or bad, you're probably wrong. So the important thing is like, this Dunning-Kruger effect is going to be with you all the time, but it's important to recognize it and to just note those things. So it's like, if somebody is kind of acting agitated on the first day of work, or kind of like, doing something strange, that's just his first day of work. Let's see what that thing happens. And again, very important, Mr. Kirchhoff, to have faith in others. I know that as a population, things move, but immediately closing the door and saying that person is beyond help and he'll never change is incorrect. It's incorrect. It's what keeps you in the valley of despair. Reminding yourself that even though that person is probably hopeless, that there is hope, because you don't know him well. You don't know him well, and he may have the capacity to do it. And that's a very difficult thing to do. Having faith in others when statistical results show otherwise. But those statistical results are not significant. They're just temporary. And out of pattern events happen. That's the whole thing about the statistics, the out of pattern events. And underneath all those things, there is a rational human being underneath all those like dopamine addictions that can actually sense those things. This is the hardest thing about, sometimes I discover a pattern that's so deep, and I always kind of have doubts like that people would understand it. Like, forget about agreeing with it. Like, no, I don't keep hope that they'll agree with it. I think that what I've discovered is so deep, is so like, impossible for other people to understand. And it always surprises me how people not only understand what I'm trying to say, but they actually mostly agree with it, even if they actually don't do it. So somewhere there is very deep awareness. And yeah, it's important to keep that in mind. We're not saying that people will use it or they'll change, but the awareness is there. Very deep. Very deep.
All right. There is hope.
Maybe.
There is hope. No taken. Not going to disregard anyone. There is hope out of the valley of despair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stoykov.
Yeah, you're welcome. And to our lovely audience, like and subscribe.
Yeah, please like and subscribe. Comment if you would like to say something.
Yes.
Ask us something. See you on the next episode.
See you on the next episode.